on the line and looking forward to an exciting, interesting conversation with Emilio this afternoon. So Emilio, the Vice President of Corporate Sustainability at Ecolab, has been involved in the food and beverage industries, pharmaceutical, healthcare, metals and automotive in career. And in 5 years has led Ecolab's strategic sustainability, focusing on corporate sustainability and internal environmental stewardship, and also helping customers operate sustainably. Emilio has worked with a number of partner organizations, the World Wildlife Fund, the Alliance for Water Stewardship, and the Nature Conservancy, and also notably with the World Economic Forum. And we're very pleased that Ecolab, a sponsor of the Circulars 2016, the world's premier awards for circular economy leadership, held in Davos. And I can see a number of people on the line who have participated in this year's program and last year's program, so welcome. Very good to have you on the line. And without further ado, I will hand over to Emilio now, and thank you very much, Emilio.
Thank you, Quentin, and great to be with everyone today, the young global leaders around the world. I think we should move to the next slide, where what we hope to do today is really the business case for water stewardship by really highlighting a tool that has been about a year ago, that when it was launched, in partnership with Ecolab, the Global in Water, Hygiene, and Energy Technologies, with TrueCost, who's the leader in valuing natural capital. For those who may not be familiar with TrueCost, an enormous amount of work in this area of valuing externalities in the last 15 years have really created some very interesting models. Some of that they did with the Puma P&L, ePNL is an example of that. So to get worked on, we're creating this tool called the Water Risk Monetizer that we're going to discuss today. And as we move to the next slide, the of has been and continues to be a major line in prominent journals around the world. When we think about the pressures that business face as well as water users around the world as they look to grow, but it's tasked to do that in an environment where the supply of water is in a constant state of flux. So, for those of us in the sector, how much control do we think we'll have over supply and availability the coming year? It becomes daunting. So on the next slide, what are calling this is it's not an exception to normal. And an image of Lake Mead, which just happens to be one data point. Clearly, we've seen significant water level up here in a very precious resource. Many citizens in that area. This is just one example. Go very far to find others. California, which is in an extended drought. We've got Sao Paulo, Brazil, that's also in an extended drought. So it's where businesses and the ability to have consistent supply of water is a key to ongoing operations, with impetus for Lab and TrueCost partner together to information related to water scarcity at a site level, the water users to really inform decisions managing this issue of water scarcity. So on this slide, we introduce this new way to factor in risk as to water scarcity into the business decision-making process. The Monetizer enables water users anywhere in the world to really understand and quantify and monetize the risk related to scarcity. It's the first of its kind available, and it's at no cost, so any one of us can go to watermonetizer.com, which is a domain name, and access the tool from there. Next slide. The premise not only of the tool is that, as most of us know, water is undervalued in much of the world. Far when you see places like, for example, Amsterdam, where that a very low water stress area, where water in prices here are 42 per cubic meter. If you area that I spent some time in, like Dallas, Texas, where heightened water scarcity issues, drought conditions, we have water in prices at 79 cents per cubic meter. There's what our first relationship between water availability, the water stress, and the what users pay for the precious resource. So the bottom line is that is cheap. It makes the challenge of water a problem. So most of us find it challenging to invest in water reduction strategies. We can't make that business case to do so. I think what you'll see is you go very far water scarcity to emerging economies. I think what you'll see from this particular graphic overlaid onto this WRI aqueduct, the megacities around the world. These are populations, fastest growing economies, biggest economies. We're working at the top 20 are in a scarce situation or currently in a drought. Even the biggest economies today deal with this as a risk to their GDP growth. So organizations have work such as the World Economic Forum, the CDP report, organizations like the Pacific Institute, where we see that from a business impact, that businesses are already there. From the survey, you can see here that 7% of the companies surveyed that water scarcity is a substantial business risk, a business risk that they have to consider in making to either expand or build new facilities in places around the world. Managing this risk becomes now a board level discussion, which has heightened the importance of this challenge. It's very material. So we see that the 2014 CDP report, and as most of us know on the phone, CDP will be disclosing their 2015 annual report here shortly, where they'll share their carbon as well as their water program results year. This is 2014, where 3 companies that have participated in their water program, where 33 of them have disclosed that scarcity threatens their revenue anywhere from 1 to 6%. You can see a diversity of industries that have been profiled here, but I don't know, but 1 to 6% impact is significant if you think about the top line. The reasons now water scarcity also as a factor that can influence that growth. Now, this really, this how do companies who want this water stewardship to drive business growth in various regions around the world, how do they do that in the context of what we talked about, where water is a risk, and it's not only water quantity but also water quality? And so this license to grow approach, which really is on these four phases. The first being assessing and monetizing risk, and developing at or enterprise level for those large multinationals is the regulating where they feel hotspots are, and being tools available, like some of them that we're showcasing here today, like the aqueduct tool and the water risk monetizer, is to produce a profile so that we can identify where the problem is the most acute. Once you've identified the hotspots, you begin to ID opportunities. So this is water, once it's in the facility, the impact that the nation has to really, as specified, conserving water, drought performance, at the same time looking at operational efficiencies. So that comes out of this process is a water ladder of projects that can try to drive efficiency. Now, develop this list of in these hotspot areas, need a way to value and prioritize these projects. Not created equal. We find that water have a significant water benefit really pursued because they don't make the internal rate of return for the company because water is cheap. And business case where we look at the full value of water and the impact it has to determining what we call an EROI. And then it all comes down to execution, as we all know, is to execute those reduction strategies, change the intensity at that facility level. So next slide, and we'll talk about water risk monetizer can enable this license to grow approach. First and foremost, the version 1 of the tool, which was launched in November of 2014, nearly a year ago. The premise was that water was becoming scarce, and that led to increased costs. As we know, prices are growing around the world, regulations are taking hold, and that for businesses is impacting their profitability, their P&L. Now, become increasingly scarce, and where droughts now become extended droughts, and challenges like we're seeing in California, where water mandates from the governor are taking hold. Water scarcity and limits on its availability become an issue. So the challenge becomes disrupting operations from a productivity service perspective, which has to revenue. And so top line, and so the risk monetizer version 2 has done that potential loss of revenue impact. So we see this happening today. Those of you who are familiar with the series report that was in the spring called Scarcity, they a number of very large brands, large multinationals that were with changes related to not only the direct operations impact it had to revenue there, but also in terms of their supply chain. And as you know, from a stewardship perspective, you need to think about not only how it's within our fences, but also the stewardship aspects of it, fences, that includes our supply chain as well as other stakeholders. And so you can see various examples here around the world of organizations that have felt that and that impact of increased costs or declining revenues or even license to operate in the case of this beverage company in southern India. So this a solution that really allows us to take the challenge that we just clear in the presentation, where we're valued, and provide a fuller value, a truer value of water at a station level, and ultimately rolled up to a price level. Water availability to operate is critical because we know not only will it impact our profitability, but also the impact to production revenue. So the Water Risk Monetizer, introducing this to you today, really two features. One, looking at the risk-adjusted water price, which is the more complete picture of the of water than currently is being displayed on the annual water bill, and then the potential revenue impact, which are the two features. Also, is provide information to take action to move the needle on water we use, so to sustain our operations for years to come. So let's move to a view of version 1 and what we'll call this output risk-adjusted water cost, or risk. All scientific algorithm really takes into consideration some very basic user input. If you look at two stack bars, the current and future, let's current, and the user would put their local market price of water that's being assessed at that site level, the amount being extracted in that watershed for facility water use, lodging property, or it could be a manufacturing facility, or even a hospital. It doesn't really matter. It's agnostic to the industry. Develop what we'll call an annual water bill thanks to the user input. What the model does is on that it accesses databases that can source local information and relate to the county, the state, or the country, depending on the different databases. That's what the watershed scarcity level, we get the value and benefits of water for that go up and above the annual water bill. So such as the groundwater recharge, waste services. These externalities today that are not accounted for in the annual water bill. So in this top stack, blue, the risk premium. Combined water bill, this becomes our risk-adjusted water price in U.S. dollars per cubic meter. Over time, things change. There's water levels change, population growth, GDP. So that how the tool actually can assess based on historical trends where the local water price is going. We have this tariff data from GWI that provides an ability to look at and provide an outlook of things for 3, 5, and 10 years when it comes to water bill. And so when it comes to risk premium, how the population impact as well as water scarcity change for that basin will impact the risk premium over time, 3, 5, and 10 years. So that summarizes the version 1 water risk premium aspect of the tool. Let's move to the potential revenue at risk methodology. So it was launched in August of this year. It allows us to take a view of that influence, water use, not industry the same. The water to create a dollar revenue in a fluidized dairy will be different than it would be for a electronics, for instance. The one in version 2 is taking that into account, which is understanding the industry water intensity. User actually self-defines the segment they're in. This illustration on the left, the amount of water required to generate revenue, where the given a water basin with a number of stakeholders, as a stakeholder have a share of that water. The defined share is represented in the navy blue. Now, over time, as we mentioned earlier, the electricity and demand changes as the decrease in basin share of water because of that, both of stakeholders using that same resource. So, right, that's very different, where the water share has, and start to see that you're no longer in equilibrium. So let's look at a bit about this in terms of illustration of a watershed. Very simply put, 3 facilities in a water basin, which has a the amount of water required to operate their facility. Share more, some on the left. And water scarcity and demand for water because of new users show a decrease in basin share of water, and becomes, again, an issue because you now have revenue at risk because some facilities may not have enough to their facility. So the next slide illustrates a brewing example of an enterprise that has multiple locations in different continents, and what it presents around Los Angeles, Rio, Mumbai, and Beijing is version 1 output, the risk-adjusted water price, presented as the second number with the dollar sign, versus the water droplet price, which is the annual water market price that is paid. And so the delta there is the risk premium. In such a significant risk premium take a place like Mumbai, where water is undervalued at 7 cents per cubic meter, the risk-adjusted water price is $4.65. Now, it is the percentage of at risk that is potentially at risk, magnitude, impact, and is where it's not an issue, like places like Rio, versus whereby it's 96% potential risk, and then have an indicator. The tool provides an indicator of low, moderate, and high in terms of likelihood of potential revenue at risk. The equal weighted criteria that we put into the tool, into the algorithm, to assess the likelihood. So, from perspective, we believe this completes the picture of where we take action, and clearly of the locations, being the ones that have to be prioritized as level 1 to take at a local level to manage water differently, follow Los Angeles, and then so on. So the next slide. This is we've been, I personally have spent a lot of time in California. I just wanted to show that you can use this tool to a very specific region or localized state in this case, and do the same work. I mentioned before, for a beverage company that uses about 900,000 cubic meters a year. This particular beverage plant, a company that has multiple beverage plants, these five cities, that we see that the tool, a risk-adjusted water price that shows an issue that water is undervalued in the state of California, changing now with water is starting to climb. Gotten reports in the state of California from water districts that water prices in 2016 could were from 5 to 31%. Just for all of you to realize that is the new. How do we take action today, not waiting till tomorrow, to really the executive water that exists in the state of California to reduce water by 25%? Can we utilize the risk-adjusted water price? But we also can use this as a prioritization to find which water percent here in the state of California is the risk when it revenue, and that places like Los Angeles and Santa Clara, there are challenges there, more prominent than the other cities. So the tool is very useful from a nation perspective, but to substantiate decisions to invest in to reduce water use. To the slide, Monetizer, and is at waterriskmonetizer.com. An image of the website, a landing page, and there's just some incredible information available to all of you as it relates to the tool, including a very detailed document that's about 25, 26 pages long, as well as some of the advisory organizations that have participated in creating the tool, like GI. We work with WRI, the World Reef Institute, and we feel that this tool is one tool that enables, among others, to really a risk-adjusted water cost of water, the first of its kind, to really do this potential revenue loss analysis provides. It's unique. Before, we think it's what business people have been looking for to really get to monetize. The premise here being that if we ties something, as people will measure it. If we can, we'll then measure it. And of course, if we manage it, we will then improve it. At a national level, we can identify the greatest risk in those multinationals. That's a very big imperative for them to really understand where they're greatest at risk. And it allows them to and select how they will manage that site, especially if they look to grow their business, either or through new facilities that they're building in that particular area. So, as the next slide, thoughts. If we're really going to look to grow business in an era of water scarcity, or this new normal that I spoke of, from my comments today, that requires us to change our mindset that ultimately changes the behavior of how we manage water, how we value water than we have in the past. It isn't the right approach. In fact, if punishment decisions need to supersede policy, and so we need to be able to take action now. There are technologies available today that provide significant short and long-term benefits. And our scarcity also drives innovation, in this case for innovation, but opportunities for us to really take advantage of technologies that are available today to really move the needle on water production strategies that will allow us to sustain our operations for the long term. I'm going to pass it back to Quentin for any questions, considerations that anyone might have.
Emilio, that was a fascinating talk, given insight, I think, into the issue of global water scarcity and really way in which we can begin to map and measure and improve on this really important issue. I think it'd be interesting. I've had a couple of questions ping through on this theme. In terms of the link to Ecolab and Ecolab's business, perhaps you could elaborate a little bit on the story there. What led you to develop a risk tool, and how does that play into creating value for Ecolab as a business and into your other offerings?
Well, I guess that question is that Ecolab for the last 5 years has really done a lot of work around this concept of water stewardship, and we've been a founding member of the Alliance for Water Stewardship. For those of you who are familiar with it, it's an organization that has done an incredible amount of work around driving not only management facility, which obviously plays to what Ecolab does and ALCO around the world when it comes to water management through our 1.3 million customer locations that we serve. Water is a critical platform for us. It's one of our key pillars, and it's one that we look to grow in the future. Water stewardship is also really conveying through their international water standards is this to also look at water of not only within the fences but also outside the fences to really drive more collective action, because we know that water is a critical resource. A number of stakeholders depend on in a watershed. It is a shared resource, and so our impetus to creating this tool was to make that business case to take active actions within facilities that ultimately have an impact outside the facility.
And do you think that mentioned to your customer relationships, have you found that it's been an area that's been an informed conversation on water issues has helped in developing that dimension?
It has, Quentin, namely because there's really, if I were to boil it down to three things, I would say that all customers, and I would say this is true for any water user, which is the context that we just talked about today. How do you build operational site resilience, with the challenges that we see today around the world as it relates to water scarcity, and that's quantity and quality as well. One thing, it's a foregone conclusion. It's happening, and it's going to continue to happen. Some of us think it's probably not happening fast enough, but it's happening. And that many water users around the world are needing to manage. It's one of the biggest line expenses today. And then it's educational risks associated with business, and that is an important one as well, because as you can see that more water scarcity is leading to challenges and risks around operations, but also in your supply chain that you might be connected to as to water scarcity, and how we manage that is an imperative, I think, going forward.
Good. And in terms of comments, one or two of the audience have picked up on the fact that the two main issues are quality and quantity. So it's about quantity, but perhaps not so clear how the quality theme plays out in the water risk monetizer. We all know that what can water scarcity are waste less and pollute less. Does the water risk monetizer tool take account of quality issues as well?
It doesn't take into account quality today. We're working on that particular version, which will be version 3, 2016. Look at incoming water quality. So water as it comes in, as us know, depending on the industry, will pre-treat water before it's put to use. The treatment or effluent, and it's associated with not only the permits, but also other externalities that lead to risk associated with quality discharge. So that's one thing. The second I would say is that for most of us, and I use this example a lot when I speak about this around the world, is that what quantity. So, for example, this would be a utility that I've worked with in the United States, where they were sourcing water from a basin. And drought a few weeks ago, that river basin, of course, dropped in water level. Water level in a river was known that increases the velocity of the water, which actually turned into increasing the turbidity of the water. So the quality of water had changed to that utility actually increasing the amount of water used because of quality changes related to their source. So, you need to be mindful of how quality does impact quantity in situations like that, depending on where we are in the world.
Well, it's interesting to know that that's kind of going to be along in version 3, and the close relationship of those two issues. Good. From Hannah Line, who picked up in one of your initial slides, where you talked about the different impacts water scarcity is likely to have on various different industries. The financial services sector on that slide seemed to have a very high impact that was a surprise, perhaps, to the audience. I wondered if you to say a few words about that, and maybe I can go back to that slide and so this one.
Yeah. So, Quentin, unfortunately, I don't have the specific report in front of me to help share insights on the financials, but I look at that offline and that out through the annual reports that CDP produced in 2014.
Sure, interesting. No, thanks for that.
Yeah.
And in terms of kind of the industries that you're talking to that use this tool, do you find that there are certain industries that are more inclined to use the tool, that you've seen greater uptake with, or what's the picture across different industries?
you just look at some of these industries that we represent here on this chart, say as you to the consumer, the use of the tool, that B2C companies are prominent brands, one familiar with in our everyday lives like Unilever, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo. And so food and beverage industries, consumer-based companies are sensitive for reasons that we talked about. Namely, they're trying to stewardship practices to organizations, those stakeholders that really keep an eye on their operations, but also their practices. But so things like, they manage their risks, how do they manage their regulatory risk, and how do they manage a reputational risk, all come into here. And so that would be where I see this being more prominent. I would say in the industrial sector is shift as well. So those organizations that we can think like the large sector companies, those are companies that have high water intensity and are also to look at water scarcity risks, even if they have as much of a direct consumer. Does that make sense?
No, that's good. How are you seeing it play out within different companies? And this is drawing on a question I've received from Lucas. Information to use, are they having an internal water price and factoring that into their project costings, as if it was a carbon price, which we know some organizations are doing? How is the data that's being produced by the tool being put into play?
Great question. So yes, to follow the logic of an internal price on carbon, very similar, and at a phantom water price is the new normal, which being able to look at a more complete picture of the value of water to their operations. And you see the expression of industries like brewing industry, we put no water, no beer. They water and the value of water differently. And so taking an internal price and using that as a basis for their cost on investments is one way. Another is to look at projects with virtual ROI dollars for facility and water projects because it's a material risk. And so it may not be actually using physically the risk premium in their P&L, but they're crediting those projects with significant water reduction with that risk premium so that they can bring those to the forefront and be able to implement those where they couldn't before.
Okay. Probably the last question. If there are any more questions, I think I've gone through pretty much all the questions that have come through far. So last chance, if you do have a question for me to put to Emilio to pick on the chat function. But Emilio, I'd just like to hear from you what the plans are kind of going forward now. You mentioned version 3 coming down the track. What's the future for this tool, and how is it playing out in the next 5 to 10 years?
And features that really support the principles of stewardship. If you think of water stewardship again, it's we're focused on quantity. We've got this that really relate to the informed decisions on the water being used at a site level that is potential risk. The next version 3 will start to incorporate quality. We have an advisory team that has been developed of private sector and NGOs that really to focus also in on the a multinational that obviously has direct operations and how the tool fits there, but then we'd also like to be able to start to incorporate elements of how their more significant suppliers can be qualified as part of their risk profile so that they can take action there as well.
Mm-hmm. So really kind of framing it in the risk mitigation. Yeah. Okay. That's fantastic, Emilio. Thank you so much for your time. As you can tell from the questions which have come through from our audience, there's been a very engaged group on the phone. So thank you to our attendees for tuning in and pinging such good questions. Now to formally Emilio on behalf of the Circular Economy Task Force of the Young Global Leaders at the World Economic Forum for taking us through the water tool and spending his time with us this afternoon. I'd just like to express our thanks for that, and really kind of broader thanks in terms of moving this issue up the awareness tree and sharing your thoughts with us this afternoon. So thank you very much, Emilio.
Thank you, everyone.
Very much. So that's it for this afternoon. Thank you all very much for joining. We've got an exciting program lined up as we move through to the Circular Economy Awards in Davos. So do look out for emails from the Circular Economy Task Force. But wherever you are in the world, have a good rest of the day. Thank you very much. Goodbye.